Hey there, and welcome to A Well-Rounded Life, the podcast, a space for creative entrepreneurs seeking an intentional life and biz filled with grace, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Jamira. I'm a mama, wife, dessert fanatic, and on the ultimate mission to get you closer to your idea of what it means to live a well-rounded life. Right here is where you'll find curated resources, quick tips, and relatable stories, no matter what season of life you're in. So hang out with me for a bit and let's dive in. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to A Well-Rounded Life, or welcome if this is your first time here. I'm your hostess, Jamira, and in today's chat, I am joined by a guest named Megan Pollard. Megan Pollard is a lady on a mission that is dedicated to teaching us the importance of choosing joy. I've always admired Megan from afar, and I've always been inspired by her courage, tenacity, hard work ethic, and just how she is just so resilient. And so I am excited that she reached out to be on the show, and I am so glad I said yes, because this is an interview that I am excited to bring to you. And so I'm going to read Megan's bio, and then we are going to bring her to the mic, and we're going to get into today's show, right? Megan Pollard is a seasoned entrepreneur, business consultant, and speaker. She wears multiple hats on any given day, some of which include the founder and president of We Choose Joy, co-founder of Etc. Coordinators, and director of experience for Tandem Growth. She is also a wife to John and a girl mom. Megan believes that each avenue provides different opportunities for her to share her passion and calling to help others make margin for what matters most, whether in their personal lives, in business, or even on their wedding day. Friends, help me welcome Megan to A Well-Rounded Life. Hey, Megan, welcome to A Well-Rounded Life. How are you doing, friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
I am very excited to talk to you. I was so enthused when you reached out because I've been really wanting to hear from you and your story and everything that you've been up to, because you have been up to some amazing things. And I just want the audience to hear everything you have going on. And I just know that people are going to learn so much and be blessed by what you have to share.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I think it's everything we do, everything we learn, it's all meant to be shared. So having such a wonderful platform to do it on is just a gift in and of itself.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we were chatting a little bit earlier, just talking about the fact that every time I have guests such as, like yourself that come on, I always get a DM, a message or something from someone that feels that they can resonate with what you're saying, and very much everything feels familiar. And so before we get all the way into the interview, do me a favor and just share a little bit about yourself, your company, your family, and all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been an entrepreneur or supporting growing businesses for, I think, going on 13 years now. And that carries me into a variety of different avenues and ways in which I help, businesses and people, which is my favorite thing to do. I am super honored to be chosen as a girl mom, which is funny because I actually always envisioned my life with boys. But that wasn't the plan. And that is such a lesson in and of itself too, is that, plans are not always what we think. So I'm super proud of that job. And I'm going to still claim my newlywed status, because it's been just 2 years since I was remarried and married to John. So I'm going to hang on to that title.
I love it. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
So happy for you there. And it's funny because the girl mom thing, I see people with, 2 girls and 3 girls, and I'm like, one is good for me. I have one of each, and they are such a blessing in their own right. But I don't think I could do 2 Jacksons or 2. So God gave me what I could handle. And so we're good there. Mm-hmm. All right, Megan. So it's interesting because we are both based in the DMV area. And years ago, when I had my planner hat on, that's how I became familiar with Megan and the team that she worked with and all the amazingness that you guys were creating. For myself, you guys were definitely trailblazers and the ones that people look to for inspiration, and just we're doing amazing things. And so I've been a fan of yours forever. But the interesting thing is you don't plan weddings anymore, just like I don't plan weddings anymore. And we are both, in different spaces. But I just want you to take us back to years ago. Like I said, when you were planning weddings and what life was like back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think like the year of big pivotal change for me is 2015. So I'll start with that. But yeah, at the time, I was, a full wedding and event designer. We were having a blast and like hustling and pushing the envelope. And I was super fortunate to work with women that just really brought the most out in me in all fashions and all ways. At the same time, I had just launched with my business partner, Etc. Coordinators, which is just the 6-week out day of coordination company. So we had 2 companies going at that time. The hours are long, as you can recall and remember, it's not just Saturday, that gets absorbed in it. There's so much time. And there's such huge reward. I don't ever want to take away from that because there's nothing that compares with that look that day when you've made someone's vision come to life and you get to have that immediate gratification that so many other jobs don't have. And it's really special to obviously be witness to those magical moments and be a key part. The girls were 5 and 7. So we were, inching into actually having to participate in school in like real ways. So that was a big change. But what happened in 2015, August of 2015, is what completely switched everything for me. My husband, Jason, suddenly passed away. While he was training for the Marine Corps Marathon, he went into cardiac arrest. I received a call from the police stating that I needed to come to the hospital, that my husband had collapsed. I thought for sure it was just like heat exhaustion or something. So I wasn't even panicked, quite honestly, when I went there. I remember having a very clear look in my mind of thinking of like, he'd be all like pink faced and kind of like, oh, how embarrassing. Like you have to come, like I had this whole thing in my mind. And that was not the case. Mm-hmm. Within that afternoon, upon my arrival, he had passed and instantly everything changed. Every role, every, title, every bit of the pattern of your life is like, it's totally different. And you can't even begin to start piecing together all the things that have just shattered. But the very first thing that obviously came to mind would be with any mother was my children. Mm-hmm. And they became like the big focus while I was trying to sort through what each next step would look like. What's interesting is, grief is tricky. It's suffocating. It's confusing. It makes you think different things. I mean, it's really, really a beast. I had lost my mom in 2008 and she and I were really, really tight. And so that was a huge upset for me. And I remember one of the things that I thought of was like my childhood memories felt like they were gone. Like as the moms, I kind of feel like we're the keeper of those, like, oh yeah, you had croup when you were 3 months old. And, right. Especially that generation too. And I really felt this huge loss when my mom was gone of like, oh my gosh, like I don't know all these memories. And did I just lose my childhood with my mom? And that became something that came like front and center when I thought about after Jay had passed with the girls, because he was very much the weekend dad. He mm-hmm. had the girls. And I suddenly realized like, I'm the only memory keeper. I need to be super available. And that meant weekends were off the table for me. There were so many things I didn't know, but for some reason that became like, could I continue in the job that I'm currently in? Absolutely. is that what is best for me to be able to super like hyper focus on what my kids need? And as we're all figuring it out because we don't know, and who's going to tell me what the soccer scores are if I'm gone? It was just, it's funny how the things certain things float to the top. That became something that was really clear. And I didn't know how I was going to do it because that's a grief of a whole nother side.
Yeah.
Walking away from a company that I loved and people that I loved into something that was completely unknown. But my gut was telling me that's what I needed to do.
It's so interesting because I talk a lot about it here on the show. I lost my mother in 2010, who was also my best friend and also a big part of me starting my company, and she worked within my company. And so it definitely changes everything when you lose someone so close to you, because some people aren't close to their parents and some people have broken marriages, but when you feel like your stuff is solid and then it's taken away from you, it's a whole different level of loss. And my mother's birthday was a week ago today from, it's like a week ago. And to your point about the memories, I found myself trying to find photos to post like on Facebook in honor of her and all the things. And you realize that person's life stops. And so now you only have to go off of what was taken and what was there. But because of that, I am the mom taking photos of everything, what they ate, what they did, what their reactions to things, because I want them to have those memories, as you said, to be able to go back and reference things. Like I have questions about my childhood that my mother cannot answer. And my biological father, wasn't present. And so it's one of those things where you're now asking family members, like, well, what, so advice to anyone listening, capture every moment, write things down, share with people, record it. I don't care how, but it's just nice to have those treasures when, as you grow.
You are so right. My mom never took pictures. Like she was not in any pictures. She was very self-conscious, which I have to say, like, I have seen myself trending in the same, like, oh, don't take a picture. And I have to force myself because I am so sad that I don't have enough pictures of my mom. Like even on her wedding day, there's a picture of her coming down the stairs and she's holding a veil over her face.
Oh, good.
Like she was really like out of the spotlight. But I don't want my children not having photos to flip through or videos to flip through. So that's changed my behavior,
And also to the moms that are the ones taking pictures.
Yeah.
Have someone else take a picture with you in it with your kids, because we go on family vacation. I'm always taking pictures of the three of them, husband and two kids. And I'm like, and people are like, were you there? Well, someone had to take the picture.
I'm a human tripod. Yeah.
So now I'm trying to do better, as you said, because I do want them to have, to have those memories and whatnot. But yes, I do remember that time because it definitely rocked the events world when you lost your husband suddenly, because I really think it put things in perspective to all of us that someone's life can change at any moment. And it wasn't like he was, 40, like 50s, 70s, whatever. He was young and healthy. And that is the part I think that scared a lot of us, because in an instant things can change. And the question is like, you can never be prepared for, tragedy, but how do you, move forward? And so one of the questions I have for you is, what advice would you give a parent that may find themselves in a similar situation as what you had to go through in that season?
Sure. So I think, it's interesting you say, like, you really can't prepare for the unexpected in that way. And I'm sure you come across this when you're working with businesses, it's sort of that, like, I got hit by the bus plan. Like, how does your business continue to run, and function if you're not there turning the crank, and keeping things going? Well, I had to apply that very much to my personal world and how to simplify things. And what I chose to do was just to boil it down to what I needed. I removed wants for the immediate time because I really was like, there was only so much I could handle. So some of the things that I needed, were I needed to make sure that the girls were, getting the therapy and getting the support that they needed. I needed to make sure that I was available to witness what was going in between the cracks and what might not be there. So I needed time. I needed silly things like insurance and a set income. I love selling. I could have continued to sell, but I also knew, in the events world, I also knew that it was going to make me vulnerable to inviting things into my world that were potentially like red flags. Like, you come across some of those clients where you're like, oh, this sounds tricky, but I don't have any revenue for March. So maybe, right. Yeah. And I knew I would take it because my fear and need for stability would overcome my red flag of saying, no, don't do this.
Yeah.
So that was a real big self-awareness for me, that I was like, I have to take myself out of that position because I will say yes, to the income. And I don't think that the income is actually necessarily what was so important to the girls as me.
Absolutely.
So I sold both my houses. I had a rental townhouse. I had a lovely little house in Leesburg that I loved. We sold both of those. I rented a townhouse that some of my friends were like, maybe this isn't the greatest. And it was on Wildflower Lane, which I, of course, was like, it's like a new birth. And I tried to sell it and everyone was like, this is shady. But it was in the right school zone that put me where I could have my kids with some family that was able to watch them before and after school. So I was able to save there. It was all extremely calculated.
Yeah.
Very logistic.
You are.
Yeah, totally. And I boiled it down to as small as everything that I could handle on my own, so that I could rebuild.
I love that.
And those were the steps that allowed the growth to happen, because we had, I guess maybe it's more like we just worked on the soil. It was just hands in the dirt. Let's just make sure this is good and that there's space, because something I really didn't want for my kids, and I think that any parent would be in this situation, be feeling the same way, is there's a loss of childhood. There's a loss of innocence when a trauma like this occurs. All of a sudden, they become very aware of car accidents and sicknesses and things that they didn't think could touch them before. And I genuinely believe that laughter is a huge antidote to a lot of that. You just can't carry stress in the same way if you are able to laugh. But if I'm stressed, I'm not laughing. Like, there's no way I'm light enough to process the humor or to process the silliness. And so that became part of the soil. That was part of the fertilizer, was making sure that I wasn't so tapped that I couldn't play.
Well, I love that. Not to be so tapped so you can play. The other thing is, we're talking about loss in the sense of death. However, it just came to mind to me that there are families that may transition into divorce. Yeah. And so how do you prepare your children for divorce or loss in other ways? It doesn't have to just be about death, because that is our reality, that there are some families that, things don't work out between the parents. But how do you prepare your kids for that? How some parents, they move out of the house. You do have to move your kids to different school zones. You may have to have some support for family. And so these are definitely great points and tips that you brought up, because it may not be death, but there may be some type of life change or shift in some capacity. So, are you prepared, or what's the plan? So great.
I would also add to that, and I think it's a really good point, is that they will lead, or they will follow your lead.
Right.
So that was something that became very clear with the kids too. If I was up, they were up. If I was down, they were down. And I saw that connection really, really clearly. And it's not to say fake it, I think it's important. There's plenty of nights of mommy's crying, or whatever the case would be. I think it was important for them to see the reality of it, but also for them to see me say, okay, now that time is done. Now we're going to pick ourselves up and we're going to roll and we're going to move on to the next thing. I also included them in a number of the decisions. At first I didn't, because I thought, okay, I'm the parent, and I kind of was like, I have to have everything under control. And that actually, my children showed me that was not working the right way. So instead, like when we were getting ready to move and we were getting ready to make some of these big changes, I said, so this is what I'm thinking. And this is why I'm thinking it. I would really love your input. Please, but no, I am the adult and I am the parent. So this is my decision and I am accountable. If it works, that's great. We get to celebrate. If it doesn't, that's on me. That's not on you. I don't want you to hold the responsibility, but I do want your input. That ended up spurring all of this. My oldest was asking if she could make a Pinterest board for her new room. You know what I mean? And and she was, again, 7 at the time. But they were part of it. They owned it. So it wasn't something else that was happening to them. They were happening to the move. And I think that was a big thing, that any family going through a change would be able to benefit from that kind of communication.
No, I think that's great, because we have a philosophy in our house that our children are a part of the team. And so as members of the team, what are your thoughts? What should we be doing? And all the things there. So I definitely love that. If you have children that are mature enough to have conversations and give opinions, see what they're thinking, because you just never know how they can add value to the next phase or what needs to happen. So I love that as well. And then as far as from the adult aspect, again, we're talking grief and we'll get into more joy, but what advice would you have for someone that may also be in a season of heartbreak, loss, change, and all the things that come with life?
Yeah, I think something that was something that really helped me, because grief is grief. There were so many days, weeks, months, really, that me and the couch were very close, and and I would get the kids on the bus and then I'd curl up. And so I don't want to hide and pretend like that didn't happen, because that is absolutely part of it. But then I started realizing, I couldn't stay in this behavior, because I didn't want, again, I knew my children were going to follow my lead, and I didn't want this to affect them in that way. And so I literally started tracking how I was feeling every day, what I was eating, when did I go to bed? When did I wake up? Was I tired? Was I exercising? I was trying to crack a code of this feels better than the other day feels, anything. And, it's funny. A couple of my friends were like, Megan, you can't think your way out of this. And I was like, no, I'm just collecting pointers. I don't know. But I was in a full tailspin. So I needed something to try to anchor me. What I discovered was that actually a lot of those routines had a very big impact on how I was grieving that day. If I didn't get a whole lot of sleep, I was probably going to eat more junk food the next day, because you're looking for that upper, or maybe I'd have too many glasses of wine that night to, all those things. And then I was too tired to exercise. So then I started picking very small things of 10:30 is my bedtime, which is still to this day, hardcore. 10:30, my body knows it's shutting down, so that I can get the sleep that helps me make the better food choices, that helps me operate. It all stacks on itself. And those things brought the word choose to me. That choice, that meant power. That meant I don't have to be a victim. I don't have to be these things that have happened to me. Mm-hmm. I get to choose. And that was a really, really big thing. And it's funny because it came out on accident on social media. I'm not on social media a ton. But shortly after, after Jason's passing, we had such a huge community that rallied around us. And I felt a real responsibility to want to make sure everybody knew that their effort wasn't in vain and that we were doing okay. I was coming across Thanksgiving, and I was not very thankful at that time. Like I was, yeah, like I was really struggling, but I was like, like, where's that getting me? And I need to change. I need to figure out, and this sort of a fake it till I make it kind of a situation. I need to put it out there. And I also am a big believer in sowing and reaping, and so I found this quote, which was like became the Instagram default for me of how I could communicate what I was thinking, which is thankfulness is the soil in which joy grows. And then I did hashtag we choose joy. It just very organically came out of me. And all of a sudden, people started responding back with, look at all the joy I'm seeing. I saw this and I thought of you. And I realized that very subtle shift in thought suddenly turned our story into a choice of joy as opposed to a choice of tragedy. And that was a big game changer for me and the girls at home.
That is awesome. I love it. Choice of joy versus choice of tragedy. Yes, because there are positives that do come out of things that feel negative. It may take time, and we may not always see it right away, but there are some positives. So I think that's genius of shifting your mindset. It's a mindset thing of knowing where you need to put your time, energy in, knowing that just being miserable and, like you said, every day curling up on the couch is not the best. You can have days. We all have days, but at some times, when will you choose to do something different? When will you choose to decide that I'm over the crying, the tears, the depression, and I know that there's so much more to life. So let me start making some changes in choosing more joy. And so it leads me to my next question of what are some things that one can do to incorporate more joy in our lives, because who doesn't want more joy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think number one is space. I think it's there. I think it's there for all of us, but I think we're so darn busy. We don't allow it to like seep up, and we're so quick to move to the next thing. Like number one offender here. I'm not speaking as someone who, never experienced it. It's because I was a go person all the time. In fact, I remember I went to a leadership conference and I received a 360 review, how they'll do those. And some of the feedback, which blew my mind, but was so huge and important for me to soak in was, Megan never celebrates what we've accomplished. She's always on to the next goal and the next achievement. And that hit me really hard. And I had to say, thank you, take it. That was something else that jumped to my mind after Jason passed, where I was like, I can't afford to not celebrate things because life is short. And life is super precious. I never made time to play ever. I was like, if we're going to go out to dinner, we'll make this a work meeting. Like I was so focused in that way. The other thing, so we started making some actual visual cues around the house to help prompt us to really be aware of all of the good things that were happening as we were recovering. One of them was a jar of awesome. This is probably not even Pinterest worthy because creative, yes, design and crafty, not so much, but it's a mason jar that I stuck an index card to that says jar of awesome on it. That's it. And whenever anything cool or great or happy or awesome would happen for the girls and I, we'd write it down and we'd ball it up and we'd stick it in the jar. I wanted them to have a visual indicator. Like you might not feel it every day, but you can't deny the stuff that's in the jar. And what that also ended up doing, particularly for young kids, is it becomes a game. So now they start looking for the good things so that they can ball it up and stick it in the jar. And that becomes a huge shift right then and there, because we will find what we're looking for. If you want to find, in anything, whether it's something you're, on Instagram or the news or whatever, you can find what you're looking for. I needed us to be looking for the positive because the alternative was just not acceptable for our future. It just wasn't palatable. We couldn't swallow it. So the Jar of Awesome became a big thing, which I actually incorporate that with the businesses that I work on too, which I'm like, this is not a sexy gadget or a high-tech tool, but I'm telling you, it's a game changer when you start making it a center point for your life and your business. The other thing I started doing was really bringing big awareness to how I was spending my time. I felt very overwhelmed by all of the like sole breadwinner, single parent, trying to maintain a house, who did the groceries, like all those things that I had once had a partner to divide and conquer was now all on my plate. And I realized, again, like I said, I needed to make space for joy, because that was what was going to make my kids' memories. They're not going to care if I got my taxes paid on time, like the government does, but like, they don't care. They care if I am available to hang with them.
Right.
And quite honestly, since that wasn't something that was part of my natural pattern, I had to schedule it, which sounds really lame, but I'm telling you, when you start prioritizing your people and you start prioritizing yourself, just as equally as you do your commitments, your dentist appointments, your report that needs to get in, your meetings, life changes. And so I create that has become actually like the journaling process, which, we'll chat about later, but that helped me be accountable to like, you worked all day today. You did not pour into your kids or to yourself. Do better tomorrow,
It's interesting because it also ties into our mission over here for Living Well-Rounded, where when you said prioritize your people and yourself, I'm like, amen, hallelujah, because over here, our thing is, if you say it's important to you, then you have to act accordingly. So if you say you want more time with your spouse, then schedule those date nights as if it's a business meeting you can't get out of. Because what a lot of us tend to do is say we want to hang out with a friend or even self-care or whatever it is. Something will come up that could potentially take that time slot and we push it to the side. Mm-hmm. Even though we say that we want it or we complain that we don't have enough time, you can choose how you spend your time once you do make a plan and you figure out what your priorities are. And so for us, those date nights are non-negotiable. My husband has set dates with our kids on Wednesdays or Tuesdays, whichever, whatever's going on in the season. And that's their time. And he doesn't, spend time with me during that time. He doesn't take work calls. It is their time. And I know, like looking, back, that they are going to remember that my dad made intentional time for me once a week for a couple hours. It was our time. And I think those things are important when you are trying to cultivate relationships and definitely protect the things that are important to you as well.
Yep.
So I love that. Love it, love it, love it. And so, Megan, for the naysayers that feel that when we are going through heavy things and you just can't see the light, what advice could you offer someone that may be in a dark place, that, they're trying to seek the joy, but they're you a couple years ago on the couch and just trying to figure things out?
Yeah. Well, I think one is acknowledging that, yes, whatever burden or backpack you're carrying is heavy. No, and you can't compare your heavy to someone else's heavy. It does deserve its own space in its own right. And for any of them, there's no specific rule book as to how to get out of it. There are resources to give you ideas, but ultimately you have to choose the best way for you. Something that I have shared with others that have come to me with that exact question: it's too hard to choose joy. I can't. I'm just not an optimist, or any of these sort of things, which I don't scold. I completely empathize with that. Like, it's so hard when you're in such a dark space. But something that I would say I have said to myself when I get in other difficult times is that, one, I remind myself, this is not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Like, in this moment, I'm feeling like this is so dark and so heavy, but then I remind myself, this is not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And many of us do have something else that we could rely on to use that. Now, if you are in the worst thing that's ever happened to you, which, I've been there, you've been there, at this time in our life, we can also shift that to say, I never have to repeat this exact moment ever again.
Oh, that's great.
Like you've done it.
Yeah.
You got past whatever the scenario is, like that day, August 15th, in that hospital, that moment with Jason, I never have to relive that exact moment again.
Mm-hmm.
Going and telling my daughters, which is a story I can't even talk about, I never have to say that exact phrase and that word again.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but you made it through. And I think that's the other thing.
Yep.
Even though it is your worst day, even though it was the worst thing that ever happened to you, you made it through. Mm-hmm. And most likely you made it through with a message or something where you can help other people who may be going through it, or, just have a resource as well, so they don't feel alone. But even if it is your darkest day, you will make it through. And I think, that's important for people to understand as well as we try to navigate.
Each day counts. They all stack on themselves as wins.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. I did find myself at one point being like, day 3, the widow Pollard. My friends were like, they're going to crack up when they hear this, because that was like this persona that I had built for myself. She was going to be this like long silver-haired lady that lived off in a cottage that used to help people with their businesses, because that's what I love to do. And like, she was always a little kooky, but she was cool and her kids were happy. And like, I had this, that was the widow Pollard. My friends were like, I mean, if that's what you like, it was just sort of like, I don't know. How do we tell her this is a terrible idea? But once I had that shift of like, there's so much more. And, and today I'm living proof of that. And all of those days that used to be stacking towards widow Pollard when I shifted, are now stacking to the beautiful life that I'm blessed to have today.
That's great. So we have the same last name. And so when you say widow Pollard, I'm like, I never want to be.
No.
Ever.
I'm in the middle of a name change too. So,
we'll bury widow Pollard. And so that chapter is over.
Yeah.
And so just in general, like, why is choosing joy so important when there's other things that we can choose, but just why joy?
Mm-hmm. Because joy, I don't think is it's not a thing. It is a state. It's a feeling. And I think that it becomes the result of actually other choices that you make. So when you choose to invest in your children, in your friends, in yourself, in health, and things that when anyone asks someone in their final days and their final hours, the things that are the most important to them, those are all the small choices that create an atmosphere of joy. Like I love a feeling. I love an atmosphere. Even when I was designing weddings, that was always the thing where I was like, everyone had their strength. Mine was an experience. Like, people are going to feel this at the right time, and you're going to hit the altar at the right verse of the song. And, like, it was all these little things that create and evoke that feeling. And that's what joy is. So I think that it's kind of a sneaky way of, holding us accountable to all the choices that we make, because it then creates joy.
I'm smiling as you're describing the whole wedding stuff and the experience, because I'm pretty sure you sold the hell out of that experience to the client. Because I'm smiling like I was getting married. Like, yes, because I know if it's set and done the right way with the right team and the right tools, it's magic.
It's magic. And then they look at you and you're like, yep. We did it,
Told you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always, it's always that way. And that's how it is in my house too, like atmosphere and just that feeling. And wedding planning, I mean, that just creates such a map for so many other things in your life and things that can be done, at least the way that we used to do that, I used to always tell clients too, I'm like, you create a plan so that you've got room to swerve. Like, that's the lane so that you can get off of it. If you weren't the sort of client that was comfortable with me balling up a timeline and throwing it over my shoulder, like we should not work together, because if the room's telling me something different, if we need to stay on that dance floor for one more song, like we're going to do that. Absolutely. And because it's in the broken pattern where the memories are made. Like the routines become routine and our minds actually don't absorb it. It's in the off moments. It's in the spontaneity. It's in the, that becomes those markers that we remember forever.
Mm-hmm. You got me thinking about a lot of things now.
It's funny. My husband and I put it in our vows, actually, of there being no rules and like Tuesday afternoon margaritas and like things that are not part of our normal. I have another group of friends too, that she's amazing and has 3 kids. And she's like, I always know that whenever we get super routine, it's time for us to plan a trip, me and my husband. She's like, when we stop having to communicate because it's so like clockwork, I'm like, we need a weekend away. And that's her like little test of like, I need to spice things up. I need to freshen it up. And it's really interesting because I think the clockwork is a big security thing that feels good, not having to ask for things, but what might feel great, is throwing it off a bit.
No, that's a great point. When you feel like you are 2 ships passing in the night, or when things are just every single thing is scheduled to a T, then it doesn't leave room. So for the good stuff, some fun and some, I'm like listening. I'm like, yep, because I'm looking at our schedule of all the things, but how can we just spice it up a bit so that it's fun?
Yeah.
Adding a little bit more fun there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Megan, on this show, you are a listener of this show, you know that we do not believe in balance, but instead we're all about living well-rounded. And so what is your unique definition of living well-rounded?
I completely agree. I think, balance is taking from one and adding to the next, and that's not real. So well-rounded is actually, I put it in buckets. I call them buckets. It's a word I use all the time, whether it's for my own self or whether, we're working with a company and we're diversifying income, you never know. It's all different buckets, but, and I break it into commitments. This would be, again, anything that is regarding like your job or, paying the bills or dentist appointments, like I mentioned earlier. I put in self. So whether or not and that doesn't have to be like mani-pedis, like every month, that could be going for a walk outside.
Right.
Listening to podcasts, I put in tribe. Tribe is what I call, my family and my friends and, my family, anything that's combined all together, my people, and then joy. So making sure in joy, I would really categorize, but like space, the room for the fun, like I said, where everything kind of pulls together, and making sure that I'm paying attention to each of those every day. And it doesn't have to be 4 things in each box. It's just like a flashlight. I just want to bring my focus back to it because we're going to get sidetracked and it's going to shift over to the right. And then we need to bring it back to the center again, to make sure that I'm feeding all the things that I know actually feed me. Dinner out with my girlfriends feeds me, yes. And without there being a talk about work, let's just sit down and be like, cute shirt, like where'd you get that from? Or maybe it is about work, or maybe it's about the kids, and that's okay. But just having space and time away from that. So that's how I help myself stay accountable to living well-rounded, to make sure I'm feeding all the areas that I know that feed me.
Oh, that's so good. I have to write that one down. Oh, it just also made me think of something too with your journal. I have to say it like that, like I'm from
yeah.
So how do you use it, and how can one benefit from it if our goal is more joy?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you giggle because actually the opening line in the journal is, I'm like, yes, you can laugh. Like, it's absurd. And that's part of the point. Like, cause it's like, it takes on a character, you know, and my husband, John, actually was the one that named it. But so what it is, it's a combination of a bunch of practices that I think a lot of people are familiar with. One, you've got time blocking. So this would be working through your calendar and it's broken into hours. Another is, I created the buckets of commitment, tribe, self, and joy. And the basic practice is to, one, go through your week and go ahead and mark off the times on the calendar that you've already given to someone else. I have already given this hour for this report meeting or whatever. I've already given this hour to soccer transport, you know, that hour is not yours to do anything with anymore at that time. So first figure that out. Now we're looking at what's left. And then you've got those buckets on the bottom to try to see if you can fill in some of your time with things like call a friend, you know, shampoo my hair, you know, whatever the silly thing is. You know, there is a laundry list that's on the left side for you just to get things out of your head so that you can then transpose that on purpose with intention. I know another one of your words, you know, so that you're intentionally pulling from like the mad, crazy list and you're assigning it a time as to when it's going to get done. And then which of these buckets does it occupy? And it's a very hard practice, I have to be honest, because it's very revealing of how much you give to the commitments versus yourself or your tribe. And it's not meant to be like a mean tool. Obviously, it's just a way to bring your flashlight back a little bit. The other big aha moment with the journal, which was huge for me, was realizing like there truly is only a set amount of hours in the day.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and, you know, and it's like, so maybe instead of this huge laundry list that particularly as women, we throw on our backs and we're like, I have so much to do. And it spins and occupies our brains. Maybe there's like 4 things that we're going to rock that day.
Absolutely.
You know, and like, and so we just put in those 4 things and we know we're going to do it at 2:00 and at 3 and whatever. You feel peace because you know when it's going to get done. If life happens, you know what you need to get back to, like, and it becomes a work in progress. But it's a great way for me to keep myself focused on the things that are important, as well as getting my to-do list done. I'm a massive like list crosser. Like it feels so good. I'll put something on a list so that I can like check it off.
Raising my hand because that's
I mean, it just feels so good. You're like, you want the credit for it. And also I'm also an offender of putting too much on my plate.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I need a bumper to show me that I'm overdoing it.
I think this is genius. I've done podcast episodes talking about similar practice. I love time blocking and brain dumping and downloading and all the things so that you can get it out of your head on paper and then actually taking those bits and parts and like a puzzle and putting things where it needs to go. So I love the idea of having a physical place to do it and like in one spot. So I definitely will link in the show notes so people can grab their journal.
Yeah, we're going to run a promo too for all of your listeners. So
awesome. So all of that will be in the show notes and on the website. So you guys can check that out. And so Megan, on a personal level, what are you saying no to in order to say yes to what matters most in your upcoming season?
Such a solid question. So I'm going to answer it in a different way besides just listing off things that I would say no to, because every day I think it's going to be different. And I think it's the analogy of, we're juggling a bunch of balls and we're keeping them in the air. But the truth of the matter is some are made of glass and some are made of plastic. The glass ones, we don't want to fall. They are the most important. They are precious. They will break. The plastic ones, well, of course, we don't want to drop them. If they do, it's not the end of the world, right? Plastic. a bummer we dropped them, but life goes on. It didn't shatter.
Facts. Yes.
So it's about looking at the day and identifying what's glass and what's plastic, and figuring out then I can only juggle 3 balls at a time. So I'm going to choose these 3 glass ones, and the plastic ones I'll save for another day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's really about identifying what each one of them is in its nature, you know, and how and that it makes it easier for me to say no to something, because I'm like, there's just too much valuable right here today that I can't give that the proper amount of attention. I will probably drop that plastic ball. So let me just punt that to another day, maybe.
Oh, that's so good. So good. I'm taking my notes, and I love the idea of there are things that are more critical, fragile. So move it up, and the things that are plastic, basically just like noise, you just kind of put it further down on the to-do list, and not even play the game of mixing it up with things that are important, because we do that thinking that everything is so important. That's why it's on the list. But there are levels and priorities and things we need to focus on. So I think that's genius. And so we're going to have a little fun and shift real quick before we end our time together. So we're going to do our rapid fire and this or that segment. So Megan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So my favorite question: you're stuck on an island. What are 3 things you must have? You can't take your kids, your husband, no family. What are we bringing?
I'm on an island. I'm an introvert. I'm all by myself. What will I do? Okay, I'm going to bring music. So I'm going to bring some tunes. That's definitely going to happen. I'm going to bring a hammock.
That's a good one.
Love a hammock. And I'm going to have to bring some nachos. I love nachos. Like, absolutely.
Oh, that's a good hammock and nachos. Haven't gotten that one yet.
Hey.
Yes. What celebrity or public figure would you like to have dinner with?
There's a lot, actually. So I'm gonna put my planner hat on. I'm gonna throw a dinner party, and we're gonna do Chip Gaines, Sarah Blakely, and Warren Buffett.
Oh, that's an interesting trio.
It's an interesting combo. Sarah and Warren, I believe, are buddies, so that might not be too difficult, and perhaps they can carpool. Chip, I think, is going to be kind of on the left field, but his exuberance is absolutely intoxicating for me. Like, so yeah, I'd love to pick their brains over a meal.
What if he wants to bring his wife?
She's totally welcome, but like Chip's really where I'm like, I mean, it's just absurd.
I love his energy.
I love his energy. Yeah.
And if you are fans of Chip and Joanna, they have a great Super Soul podcast interview with Oprah that I listened to on the plane a couple weeks ago, and it's really good. And you get their mission and how they roll in their behind the scenes. It was so great to hear that. So
I saw that and I loved it. And I think one of the things that stood out for me in that was they were like, "This isn't ours."
Right. We talked about it. Like, you're not given this mess or this blessing just for you to keep to yourself. You need to either share it or help others or serve in some capacity. So yes, I think that's what I got from it as well.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay. Back to it.
Yeah.
What is your favorite restaurant?
I love restaurants. Let's go Philomena's in Georgetown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There. Yep.
Super moody and atmospheric, if that's not a word, but whatever. Like, it just feels like you're in a different time. And I like that change. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you could hire a personal chef, you're cleaning once a week for your house, or a personal driver, which would it be?
Cleaning. I'm not great at it. I need to get a cleaner. Mm-hmm.
See, at least we know where our weaknesses are, and then you outsource.
Yes, exactly.
So you can level up. Someone needs to reach you, phone call or text. Which do you prefer?
I have to split it. I'm going to go voice memo. I Voxer.
Oh, okay. So
because I ramble. And so and if I can't do that, I'll go text. But yeah, I tend to just kind of go on and on trying to explain what it is that I'm saying. So voice message works really great.
Send them a message.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite season?
Fall.
I love fall.
Mm-hmm.
And your favorite flower?
I'd say ranunculus or tulip.
Yeah. And favorite part of a wedding day? This question was designed just for you.
No, it's the ceremony. It's the moment that matters.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And what was your first job?
I was a camp counselor.
Oh, okay.
Loved it. It did it for far too long. Not far too long in the sense that I got everything out of every single summer and I would never trade it. But it was just too much fun.
You're going to be the 35-year-old camp counselor. If it was
100%. Yeah. Like the whistle and the short shorts and like all of that. Yeah.
I love it. And so what's something on your bucket list?
My oldest has been asking to go see the Eiffel Tower for a few years now. That she actually asked Santa. So this was like when Santa
was doing his thing.
Was the man, yeah. So, and so I that's on a list. I've got to get her in front of some sparkly lights in the Eiffel Tower.
How old is she now?
She's 13.
Yeah. So same with my daughter. That is her dream place to be, Paris. And that is on our list at some point. We're like, well, maybe when she's a teenager, she can actually remember the things. But same thing with the years back. I'm like, how do you even know that there's a thing?
I feel the same way. I don't know.
Disney or something.
Yeah.
So Megan, this has been amazing. And it was great hearing your story and just the importance of choosing joy. Because now that is like my mission over the next couple of days. Like, how can I bring more joy into this family, into this household? And so where can our Well-Rounders find you on the web?
Yeah. So on Instagram and Facebook, it's at We Choose Joy Co. That's our handle there. Our website, wechoosejoy.com. That's where you can also find a journal, and some other information about how I can work with, your business or your people or speaking or any of that good stuff. And I am on Clubhouse, which I love that platform. Actually, I don't spend enough time on there, but it's a fun format, as at We Choose Joy.
Awesome. And I'll link everything in the show notes. You guys go give Megan a follow. Let her know that you heard her here on the podcast, because we definitely want to have her back. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. It is truly an honor just to learn from you. And I already feel like I'm growing, because now when you know better, you do better. And so I know the importance of choosing joy. And so that is going to be my focus as well. And so, Well-Rounders, thank you for listening. Do us a favor and screenshot tag. Let us know that you're listening so that we can shout you out and give our thanks and appreciation. And again, thank you, Megan, for hanging out with me. We will definitely stay in touch and connect very soon.
Yes, ma'am. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Bye.
Bye.
I told you, friend, that Megan had amazing insight that we needed to hear. The idea of choosing joy sounds great. I know it feels a little complicated when things are rough, but I am committing to putting more joy in my life, and I want to encourage you to do the same. So more information about what Megan has going on and all things about her journal are in the show notes and on the website. Reach out to Megan and let her know you are also rocking with her on a mission to choose joy. Until next time, friend, stay safe, stay positive, and focus on what matters most. And put some more joy in your life. Bye. Friends, thanks for kicking it with us this week. Remember to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode airs. I'd love it if you leave us a review and share this goodness with your squad. Until next time, seek a well-rounded life and remember to focus on what matters most.